Margaret had never imagined that raising children would come full circle with such silence. At 72, her house was quieter than ever. Not the peaceful quiet of birds and breeze, but the hollow kind, where the phone didn't ring, the visits never came, and the replies to her texts were cold, clipped, or non existent. Her two sons, Daniel and Chris, had grown up with packed lunches, bedtime stories, and late night trips to the ER when they were sick. She remembered every fever, every recital, every scraped knee. She remembered the sacrifices. The years she worked double shifts as a nurse while their father sank deeper into his drinking and eventually disappeared altogether. And now, Daniel barely called. When he did, he was in a rush. "Hey, Mom, can't talk long." Chris hadn't visited in over a year. Margaret had asked him once, gently, "Did I do something wrong?" He'd shrugged. "You just don't understand my life." They weren't cruel, not openly, but they were dismissive, impatient, emotionally distant in a way that stung more than if they'd shouted at her. One morning, after another ignored message, Margaret sat at her kitchen table and felt the ache rise in her chest. Not the kind a doctor could fix. It was the ache of invisibility, of being taken for granted. She could have lashed out, sent long texts, guilt-tripped them, reminded them of everything she'd done. But instead, she opened a notebook and began to write something she'd never allowed herself to think clearly before. "What do I do when my children ignore me?" She wrote the question, stared at it, and beneath it she added, "Stay calm and do this." It wasn't anger she felt. It was a desire to understand and to change the way she responded. That week, Margaret decided to test something. Not on them, but on herself. The first thing she did was stop chasing. She didn't send daily texts, didn't ask when they were visiting. She let go of the instinct to remind them of her existence. Instead, she told herself, "If I want respect, I have to start by respecting myself first." It was hard. Every day, she fought the urge to reach out. But something strange happened. Without the constant need for their attention, she started noticing the shape of her days. They were empty in places, but those spaces could be filled. So she started doing things that brought her joy, not just obligation. She joined a book club, started baking again, even if it was just for her neighbors. She called old friends, not to complain about her sons, but to laugh, to remember who she was before she became mom. A few weeks passed. Chris sent a quick hey via text. Margaret replied warmly, but didn't push for more. She left it alone. Then Daniel called, sounding exhausted. "Sorry I haven't called, Mom. Work's insane." "I understand," she said gently. "I hope you're getting some rest." Her tone surprised him. So patient, so light. "You okay?" he asked. "I am," she replied. "I've been busy." There was a pause. He wasn't used to that. Margaret realized something. Her sons had grown used to her emotional availability being endless. She'd always been there, always accommodating, waiting, hoping, and without meaning to, they'd taken that presence for granted. But now, she was showing up for herself. She stopped talking about how they hurt her. Not to them, not even to her friends. She'd discovered that constantly naming the wound kept it open. Instead, she practiced something new, detachment with love. That didn't mean she didn't care. It meant she stopped trying to control their closeness. She reminded herself daily, their behavior is a reflection of them, not my worth. Margaret also started setting small boundaries. When Chris called late one night, she didn't pick up. The next morning, she texted, "Hope everything's okay. I go to bed early these days, but I'm around tomorrow." He didn't respond right away, but he called the next afternoon and stayed on the line longer than he had in months. By month 3, Daniel texted her a photo of his daughter at school. No explanation, just the picture. Margaret stared at it for a long time. Then she replied, "She looks so happy. Thank you for sharing this with me. It means a lot." A beat passed. Then, "We're thinking of visiting next weekend. Would that be okay?" Tears stung her eyes, but she didn't reply immediately. She finished folding her laundry, then made herself a cup of tea. Only then did she text back, "That would be lovely." When they arrived, Margaret didn't fuss. She didn't bring up the past. She didn't hint at the hurt. She greeted them with warmth and allowed the moment to be what it was. Her unexpected advice, she later told her book club when they asked how she seemed so serene, was this: "You can't force your children to see you, but you can live in a way that reminds them you are not waiting to be rescued by their love." The silence, once so loud, no longer hurt the same. She had filled it with purpose, with friendships, with simple joys. And slowly, her sons began to return, not because she begged, but because she no longer chased them from a place of emptiness. She had given them space. And in that space, they remembered who she was, not just their mother, but a woman worthy of their time and respect. Margaret didn't expect perfection. She knew there would be lapses, but she had learned that dignity begins not with others' behavior, but with your own choices. When your children ignore you, don't panic. Don't rage. Stay calm. Reclaim your peace. Create your joy. And let them find their way back to you, not through guilt, but through respect.